What up, what up, what up? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, want to thank you and welcome you to another edition of the Charles Coleman Podcast. My name is Charles Coleman. I'm your host. Looking forward to today's conversation. Got a good show lined up for you today. But before we get started, do yourself a favor. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button at the bottom of the screen if you are watching us on YouTube. If you're listening wherever podcasts are heard, whether that's Spotify, whether that's Apple Podcasts, whether that's Amazon Podcasts or Pandora, wherever podcasts are heard, you can find us. We are your new home for Black brilliance. Come get with us. We're not just all the way up. We're not just outside. We're in hyperspace. So do yourself a favor and make sure you're liking and following the Charles Coleman Podcast. Got a great show lined up. Super excited about the Dream Team. And today is special because, you know, we always have like these conversations about like, remember like when bands always change members? Well, we have some of the originals today, like the original Dream Team members. I love my entire Dream Team contributors. They are all amazing. But I'm super excited because I've got one of the OGs of the OGs in the house today. To my right, y'all are going to love her. Y'all should have met her before now, but y'all gonna meet her today. The OGs of the OGs. She's the loudmouth from down south, the sister that I never knew that I needed and really didn't want, but got anyway. Hillary Powell's in the building, y'all. I took a lot of time to think about that intro with you.
Can't nobody sing like Eddie Kane Jr.
And you already
I'm
stopped?
so excited to be here. You have no idea.
I am so excited to have you on the couch.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you. Always good to be here. And of course, one of my oldest shooters. Y'all know him. Y'all have come to love him. He's Mr. Style and Performance himself, Emerson's finest. We got DJ CEO in the building. Mr. High Energy.
What is happening?
How are you, my dude?
I'm good, man. I'm good, man. You mentioned Emerson, so I want to give a big shout out to my man, Ramel Bradley. This is his new brand, Gods of the Hills, representing Clinton Hills.
We're going to stop right there.
I just want to do that real quick. I'm sorry.
We're going to stop right. Do I have something coming to me?
I got you. Don't worry about it.
Because
I just got this like recently.
There's a name on the wall, right?
I
And,
got
like,
you. I got you. Don't
when
worry
people
about
go
it.
to download stuff, they say like, "Yay,
I got you. No,
the Charles Coleman
you're
podcast.
taken care of. Don't worry about it.
All right, because that's like a lot of free advertising we just gave.
Nah, it's my man 50 grand, so I had to.
You get two choices. You can either pump your own shit like Lafayette and Grand, or you could like pump your man.
I'm always gonna pump Lafayette and Grand, but I always want to make sure I spread it throughout the community. That's all. I won't do it
Community
again.
advertising.
I get what you're saying. I won't do it again.
Nah, you're all good. We support black business out here, so shout out to Ramel. Like I'm not even a hater like that, so we're all good. So I had a thought. And I had a situation I got to tell you guys about because y'all, this is my confessional space. This is the space where I come to tell the truth. So I realized that I was low key Eric LaSalle. I was in a don't do that. Don't do that. Hold on. I was low key Eric LaSalle. I was in a Daryl moment. I had an epiphany. Check this out. So I was in Atlanta, and this was from years back, right? Mm-hmm. But I was in Atlanta, and I ran into a young lady who I knew from way back. Mm-hmm. And we started talking about a situation. Mm-hmm. And I realized it was an Eric LaSalle situation, a Daryl situation from Coming to America. Peep this. So I met Shorty. Mm-hmm. And, we started talking, whatever. I met her through a mutual friend.
All I see right now is you with a Jerry curl. That's it. That's
you got it. Okay, so I'm Eric LaSalle.
He did paint the picture.
I'm Eric LaSalle minus the Jerry curl,
okay.
Right? So I meet Shorty through a mutual friend. Started, kicking the Willie Bobo. It's all good.
The Willie Bobo.
Willie Bobo. Yeah, we're going with the throwback.
Okay.
All right. So I talked to my man who introduced us, and I was like, yo, I want to do something nice for Shorty. Now, he's known her for years. I said, yo, do me a solid. I said, I'm going to send you some bread. Like, send something to her crib for me. Mm-hmm. Like, something nice, like, because he's down there in the area, so I figured he would know where to go, flower shop or whatever. I didn't want to do no, like, 1-800 florist or whatever. So I get a call like 2 days later. And Shorty's like, yo, this was amazing. Thank you for the gift, so on and so forth. Blah, blah. And then so she sends me pictures. I was like, oh, well, let me see it. Because I didn't want to, my man never told me what he got.
Right.
So Shorty started sending me a bunch of photos in like panties and negligees.
Oh, wow.
Yikes.
Right. So then I called my man. I'm like, yo, bro. And I'm like, meanwhile in my head, well, even talking to her, I'm like, yeah, you know, that looks good on you. I can't wait to see it on you. That looks great.
That was the direction you were going. That was what you wanted to do initially.
Of course. Well, no. I didn't necessarily want it. I wanted to get there with Shorty, but I didn't tell him to go get lingerie. So I'm like, oh, he really stepped it up.
It's a creep squad. Go ahead. I'm
Don't
sorry.
do that.
I won't.
Wow.
Don't do
You went
that.
from Eric LaSalle to
Right.
Creep.
to what's the dude on Love and Hip Hop?
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
watch.
Oh,
So
well, yeah.
right. So
they
anyway,
would know.
We won't plug them.
Yeah,
But
they would know.
Guns of Peters.
Guns of Peters. So anyway, I called my man.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yo, good looking out. You know what I'm saying? You set me up right, blah, 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 blah. He says, I didn't get around to that yet.
Duh.
Right.
Oh my God, yo.
So now I'm in a pickle because I've claimed this gift. That's why I said to Eric.
Oh,
I got
with the offering.
Ah,
I got you.
Movie earrings.
Now you
Yeah,
get it with
got
the
you,
movie
got you.
earrings. And,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
From an admirer, not
Yeah,
Daryl.
exactly.
Right?
Not Daryl.
Not Daryl, right. So Shorty is like responding to me like she ain't talking to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the impression that she's trying to give me. I didn't care one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But now I was like, how do I go back and tell her? And so we ended up falling out of touch.
Mm-hmm.
And then so when we ran into each other, she told me the story as if I was a liar. This time, because we hadn't seen each other or we kind of fell out of contact.
So when she figured out it wasn't you that sent
So
it.
eventually somebody else took credit for the lingerie that she sent me pictures in. And she came at me like I lied to her. And that's why she stopped talking to me. Meanwhile, I didn't realize she stopped talking to me. I just got busy and was like,
Right.
okay.
Whatever.
Right, whatever. And it was just like, yo, I had an Eric LaSalle moment.
You did.
You definitely did.
I mean, like, literally, you can die now.
Really?
Eric LaSalle, that's the pinnacle of, like,
Wasn't he on
manhood.
like General Hospital?
It's ridiculous.
Nah, he was on ER.
ER?
See, this is the thing.
Yeah.
If you don't know what he was on, we need to move on in the conversation,
Yeah.
right?
I didn't even know how to tell Shorty, nah, your hot ass was getting lingerie from somebody
Well,
else.
you
It
were
wasn't
just
me.
mad she had hoes. She had hoes. A lot of them. It was a lot of y'all. A stable.
I
I
want-
can say hoes.
But
on
when
here.
you, but
can say hoes
also,
on here.
Oh, okay.
but also when you single, I mean, it's not necessarily out of the realm of options to take credit for somebody else's shit as long as you get a W.
Wow. Really? I would never think to
It's
do
not. No, it's
that.
not.
I wouldn't want somebody to take
It's
care
not.
of my
I don't
shit.
mean like you intentionally go out like, let me see how I can leverage somebody else's shit. But if it falls in your
It
lap,
fall in your lap.
What is
Yeah.
this show I'm on?
it's the realest shit you ever be on. To say that
We're
much.
gonna move on. We're gonna move on to our shortcuts. These are our hot topics, things that are on the mind. Sometimes we have a little fun. Sometimes they're news and views and opinions about things that we don't always talk about, but are front of the mind. Things that we should be discussing. Things that I think are a little bit fun, and then sometimes things that are topical and interesting to get into. So the first one, I actually do want to have a little fun with this. I want to have a little fun at first because, like I said, I was in Atlanta. So I went to Atlanta and I was in somebody's house and I saw, this is 2023.
Mhm.
And I was in somebody's house and I went into the kitchen and I saw that big ass, the wooden spoon and fork on the wall.
Right.
It was on the wall in 2023. Blackish I've seen in
It's like a
ever.
family heirloom now.
Yeah, that's a relic.
That is.
There's a lot of black that we took from the 80s and we brought forward, but I hadn't seen that one. So it got me thinking, what's the blackest shit you got in your house right now? Like super black. Right now, blackest shit you got in your house.
Queen Helene's cocoa butter.
Queen Helene's. Is it because it's cocoa butter or is it because it's Queen Helene's?
No, Queen Helene's. Queen Helene's.
Is it like having a green jar of Ultra Sheen?
Yes.
Okay.
It never runs out.
You know this cocoa butter.
Yeah.
It's in the brown and cream.
Oh,
and-
that
and
one?
you-
Yes.
And dark skinned people, I don't even know why you had that.
'Cause you can't use
we
that.
We cannot use
I
that.
can tell you why. Because it's one of those things. It's almost like a housewarming gift that everybody
who?
accepts,
Eric
but nobody
LaSalle?
uses.
Like,
Yeah,
who gave
maybe.
that to you?
But it's just one of them things that
Why?
ends up in the house. It just comes in the house. You know, you buy a house, right? And you ask the
Okay.
pizza to come by and they bless it.
There you
like,
go.
and it just, that
And
comes
somebody
in with
brings
it.
that.
It just comes with
What
it.
did it come with, like Janine Nate and like pink lotion?
Janine, wow. No, it's not. It's just one of those. It's just in there. Like you know,
Who gave this to you?
I don't know. It's been there since '85.
It
like,
just comes with the house.
It just comes with the
like
house.
You open the bathroom cabinet and it's in there.
And you don't get rid of it.
If you didn't
better
know,
not. Like your house will burn down if you get rid of that.
If
Like,
you didn't know
literally,
who lived in
bad
the
luck will
house,
come up on you.
you just show like you walk
You
in the
just
house,
show
you're like,
love.
who lives here?
Yeah.
Right? You would know, and then you see you like, oh,
And you
black
like,
people.
black
live
people.
here.
Yeah, it's like a
black
green
people,
book.
you see it, and you're like, black people were
It's
involved.
like the green
Yes.
book. Of,
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, when you go in there, you know, it's like, Underground Railroad type stuff.
It is the Bible in the hotel for
There
black
you
people.
go.
Okay.
That's
Shout out to the Gideons.
Yeah.
What about you? Blackest thing in your house?
Probably for me, the blackest thing in my house is, okay, so do you remember when your grandmother or your mom used to have that Folgers can of baking?
Girl.
Listen, wait.
Yeah,
'Cause you
yes.
already judging me, okay?
It's not judgment, it's black, but I just want, I'm trying to
So-
understand.
They had the can of Folgers with the bacon drippings in it.
Yeah.
So now on Amazon, you can get like a cute can. Like it's stainless steel. It has a top on it. It has a strainer in it. You can
My
do
mouth
duck
is wide
fat.
open right now.
Listen, you can do duck fat. You can do all kinds of things. But like, I admittedly have an animal fat can in my house, and I feel like the reason my food tastes amazing is because sometimes I just take a little, hit it with it.
Hit it with it?
It's a little razzle dazzle.
Did you peep how she said duck fat? She wanted
Yeah,
us to
so-
know she on some bullshit
so-
shit.
Well, then I elevate.
She couldn't
I
just
can't
say,
just-
yeah, you got to
This is not really black.
Yeah.
This is very like African American.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point.
Absolutely. That's why.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
You know what I'm saying?
We talking about black shit. You
Black
said,
it.
well, the most
That's why I
African
went to
American
college.
tradition.
I went to college.
Forget the
to
duck fat.
be African American.
You went to college.
I did.
Forget the duck fat. She used money to buy something specifically for this animal
did.
fat.
It's amazing.
Whereas the black part, what is like whatever's around
The
that
grease.
can hold this.
That's whatever it
Best
is.
$30 I've ever spent.
And you feel good about that.
I mean, amazing. I'm fortified by it. Like it's an ancestral, like it's a relic, like you said. It's something that like the ancestors are in there and they walk by it in my kitchen and they smile.
And they bless it.
Absolutely, they do.
I thought about that among the list of black things that people be having, and I never would have in a million years guessed that you would have
Did
had.
I have one? I know.
Never.
Unassuming. I am. I'm like just so multifaceted. It's why people hate me. Because it's just like,
It
oh
is
my
one
God,
of those things,
we
but
thought
that
you were,
is-
oh my God, but
Yeah.
you are, but oh wait, no, she's, yeah.
That's definitely one of the
I have
reasons
a
why
can of
people
grease in my
dislike you.
house.
For sure. For me, I had to think long and hard about this because I took the plastic off my furniture a while ago.
No, you didn't.
Shut up. So I have the cabinet of paper bags. Of plastic bags.
yes.
I got the
Yeah.
cabinet of
Yes.
plastic bags. Why you don't throw out the plastic bags and just recycle them, I don't know.
We were the first recyclers. So that's the thing.
I guess
we do
that is
not get a
true.
lot of credit for the things
That
that,
is a
we
fact.
pioneered in America. Like we got all Black History Month coming up. But really, like we pioneered a lot of things. Like this green movement, that was us. Tupperware, country crock containers with like red beans and rice in
Reuse
it.
it,
That's
reuse
us,
it.
baby.
The
Yeah.
fancy cookies
See
that
what
got
I'm saying?
everything in it but cookies.
Everything,
you go.
the Danish butter.
So
The Danish butter
Don't
Did
cookies.
you
just-
turn
we don't-
into a sewing can?
Yeah.
That was us. That's us.
Repurposing is a
That's
way
us.
of life.
Yeah.
That's us.
So yeah, that's the blackest thing in my crib is the cabinet with lots of
I get it. That's pretty
lots
black.
of bags.
That's pretty black.
It's black as hell.
As opposed to going on Amazon and buying something for the bags,
See what I'm
that would
saying?
be
That's why I
African American.
judge
That would be African
That
American.
would be
This is why I don't come to New York. It'd be too much judgment. For
I
me.
want to know.
stay
Yeah,
there.
I gotta find. I wonder how many of my friends are black and how many of my friends are
African American.
And how many are both?
Hey,
Most of us are both.
That most of us
Alter-
are both.
it-
Most of us
for
are
me,
both.
it
us are
just
both.
depends.
All right, so we're gonna move on to our next shortcut. This is a very different switching of the gears, but I did want to have this conversation with you guys. One of the things that prompted this conversation was there was a lawsuit in the state of Virginia, and it was a lawsuit around police violence where a individual, he was actually a veteran, a Marine, who was pepper sprayed during a stop by police. He had sued for $1 million. He asked for $1 million. And the jury ended up awarding him like $3,600, like $3,600. This video, the video is not good. He is not resisting in the sense of like he's trying to run. He's at a gas station, right? And so I'm just wondering, with everything that we've seen and continue to see, when you see something like that, where and just by the way that I'm telling you guys the legal part of it. The legal part of it is they did find that these officers were liable for assault and battery. But when you see a verdict like that, do you think that we have gotten, as a country, desensitized to police violence?
Absolutely.
You think so?
Absolutely. I mean, it's America, and now with social media, we are slaves to the moment. Like, literally, everything is a momentary thing. It's all fleeting. You know, we see it, we feel it for a second, and then we move on. Like, we have very short attention spans with most things. You think about, like, what we're doing right now. People can't sit down and watch something for longer than a certain amount of time. So, absolutely, police violence, when, you know, it became widely publicized back now, we're looking at 10 years ago. From that point to now, people see the story, they immediately have the knee-jerk response, and you get the onslaughting of all the posts about how heinous it is. And then next week, we've moved on to talking about celebrities.
So, like, CEO, what do you think about that? Do you think that we've like become desensitized to police violence in a way that just, you know, makes it not as big what it used to be?
It's kind of complicated. It's layers. I'll just say this. In general, in America, we're completely desensitized to violence. I mean, the country was founded on violence from day one to now. So we're desensitized even more now, as Hillary was saying, due to our access to it as well, right? Because I think we talked about this before. It's like, remember, you had to go get the Faces of Death tape to see violence that. Yeah. Right now, it's just everywhere. So there's that. As far as police violence, we're really only speaking to, we cannot speak about police violence without speaking about race, right? We're not going to ever talk about police violence towards white folks because it doesn't happen, right? So we are desensitized to violence against Black people, period. Whether it's coming from police, whether it's coming from each other, whether it's coming from rogue citizens who feel like they have to police their neighborhoods when they see Black people and all that type of stuff. We're desensitized to any violence towards Black people.
So I think what CEO was saying really speaks to the history of this country and our psychology and our behavior around it from the beginning. I mean, when you think about violence against Black bodies, like you said, that's where we started, right? This is not pivotal. You know, this is not anything new. This is not...
So you think it's always been normalized, and so this is not anything desensitized, it's just what it is.
So I think the difference in then and now is that we feel like we have some recourse. Then there was really nothing we could do about it but accept it because of, you know, our position in this country. So now...
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And we have ocular evidence to support what it is that we've been saying has been going on the whole time. So
absolutely.
So we think that because we have this evidence now and you can see it, even though we've been telling you what's happening, that somehow your reaction to it should be different than before when you couldn't see it, but we were still telling you this is the reality.
Right. Old habits die hard. We know that that's not cliche. That's a real thing. But we also realize that the same things that are ingrained in us psychologically are ingrained in them. They've been committing the violence. Mm-hmm. We've been accepting and receiving the violence. It's going to take a minute for those two things to like eventually turn a corner.
You said it takes a minute. Did that suggest that you believe it's possible? So you believe it's possible to turn the corner? If you're saying that, look, this is historically where we've been and where we've come from, is it realistic to think we can turn the corner? Because my question would be, well, goddamn, when does that corner turn?
I believe in human evolution. I mean, I would be a fool to say that people cannot change, things cannot change. But I do think that we are in America. And I have to say, you know, as a queen, I'm not going to just give my throne away. You know what I'm saying? So these people have a position of power that they're not going to just hand over. And I think that that's the delusion that a lot of people generally, not just Black people, have about power. I get it. You show them a picture and they're like, yes, I run things around here. I don't really give a shit. You know, like, what do you want me to do about it? This is what we do over here. Deal with it.
Yeah, well, this is what we do. And so given that, I mean, that's a really interesting takeaway. And I do think it hits a point in terms of the idea of like, look, part of the consequence, if you will, of something not being desensitized is that now you have to approach it and deal with it at a level that requires you to do something. And when it's not to your benefit to do that, it's unlikely that you will. We got to move on. That's going to bring us to our contributor segment. Today, we've got a good one. We've got Habitually Hillary. This is, girl, do it, girl. This is your time to wax poetic about the things that have been on your mind, things you want to talk about. So what you got for us today? What are we talking about?
So I want people to start training their staff again. I am so tired of receiving awful customer service. I am so tired of going into stores. Like, I won't say the name of the hardware store, but I remember a time you could go in this particular hardware store where people wear orange, and they legit, you could ask.
I ain't gonna say no names, but like this restaurant where they serve Big Macs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where you would go in there and you could ask any employee. It could be a checker, it could be a stock person, it could be someone on the aisle. You could say, where are the CB3 washers with the black side that have Jesus walks on the back? And they would be aisle 19. If you look down 4 shelves, they'll be right there to your right.
In bin 20.
Bin 20. They know. You go in there now, nothing. They look at you like, I don't know what you're talking about. I asked a person in a store where you like buy fabric. I said, do you know where hooks and eyes are? Now, do you know what a hook and eye is?
Yes.
You know what a hook and eye is,
I know
right?
what a hook is.
I know what a hook is.
What's the eye?
I figure like
okay, so think about when you a bra, right?
Oh,
there's
yes.
the hook
got you.
and the eye, right? But you would
got
think that someone who worked in a store where you sell fabric and novelties and thread would know what a hook and eye is, right? Literally, she had no clue what it was. I had to go and find them myself, and then I came back and I was like, you know what, Hillary? Don't just complain. This is a teachable moment. I had to show her what hook and eyes were.
That's really African American.
Like, I have turned into an auntie. I've turned into an auntie.
Black people
but
would be like
she's
a
also
latch.
a mother.
Where's the latch? You know, the latch to close it. The latch. That's what.
Well, bottom line is, I am sick of it. And I really think that the greed has created this issue. They cut and forewent training people to like save money. And now we have to endure this horrible customer service. We surrender our money to these people. And we really like, it's terrible.
So I have 2 questions for you on this. The first one is, what is your expectation? And I'm really just asking from a baseline, because if people are fighting against paying minimum wage, what are your expectations around how much they're going to pay to train their employees, particularly if they believe that you're going to still spend money with them? That's question number 1. And then question number 2, so like, you know, is customer service in an age where wages is such a conversation for employers to pay their employees? Like, is that realistic? If I'm making $12 an hour, I'm not making a livable wage, or what I don't think is a livable wage, that I'm going to take the notion of customer service seriously. And then number 2, would you and do you pay more for outstanding customer service when you find it?
I absolutely do. I try to avoid those low vibrational places. I don't go there.
Yo, that is.
I don't go there. I don't see ugly
there.
things. I don't go places where I cannot be treated with dignity.
Wait, did you say you don't see
respect.
ugly things?
I don't. I don't see ugly things. So if you put something ugly in front of me, I can see it. I don't see I'm blind to ugly things. I'm blind to bad behavior. Like, I just don't see them. So these things are problematic when they're forced upon me. Now I have to look at this ugly thing. Think about it. Fine dining, for instance. Okay, you're talking about people who need to be paid a living wage. Well, do you expect that this person who has only ever made $10 an hour has eaten a $90 steak? No. So you have to train them. You have to talk to them about this experience that the customer or client that's coming into this restaurant is expecting. And if you don't, the customer's going to suffer. Your restaurant's going to close because people are not going to come in there anymore.
I think that's more applicable to services. Like when you talk about restaurant, because you're providing a service, I definitely think that that's true. Yeah. But when you start talking about like goods, I feel like people are a little bit more lenient, because like, do you have what I need or not?
Well, the checker who doesn't know what broccoli is, like she holds something up and asks me what is.
Wait.
I'm literally.
What is broccoli? How much it costs?
what it is.
Like I was like, wait,
what it
that's
is.
what I said. I was like, wait, what?
Was this a
And
human
it
being?
could not. This absolutely was a human being and an older human being. Someone she may have been. Well, she looked to be. She may have had a hard life. She looked to maybe be
Y'all.
50. It
I'm
wasn't
not gonna ask the
broccoli.
most important
It was
question.
like broccolini, right? It was like smaller broccoli, but still broccoli, right? In the broccoli family.
Yeah.
She said, "What is this?" And I'm thinking, you work here at the store. You should know what this is.
Can I ask you a question? In your experience, do you find this more prevalent post-pandemic or pre-pandemic? Because, and the reason why I ask this question is because, as you very well know, after, post-2020, a lot of people have been very reluctant to come back to the workforce in person. So now
people
they're
go-
hiring people, just
whoever they-
everybody, just to fill in spaces. So you think
You got
this
a
happened
pulse,
post?
son?
Huh?
You got a pulse?
Oh,
hired.
you hired. You good.
You in here.
So you feel like that's more prevalent now than it was before?
I think service was on the decline prior
Okay.
to the pandemic, and now it is in the gutter.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's just how I feel about it. We slumming now. It's terrible.
What's your like model? Because like I've talked to people, I talked to G about this a lot. Like we talk about customer service. Some people, we're not trying to pub any particular brands
Right,
necessarily,
right.
but what was the last like customer service experience that you could say was the exemplar of what
Okay.
you would want?
So I'll use my bank for instance. I have a regional bank,
I was
and
going
I
to ask
have,
about banking.
and you have to have your international, national bank, whatever. You guys are business people, so you understand. My regional bank, I would never get rid of my regional bank because when I walk into that bank, they call me
They
by
know who
name.
you are.
They know who I am,
Mhm.
and I'm not sure. Also, my gym, and I don't care that it's because I scanned the barcode or whatever.
Is that the
fact-
same gym?
different gym? Well, actually, okay, so that gym's great, but for that
Funny story,
reason,
y'all. Funny story, y'all. A
Yes,
couple
you
years
did.
ago,
Yes, you did.
yours truly, the
You
civil
did.
rights attorney, had to step in on my sister's behalf because the gym was playing games with her.
They
So
were.
the fact that you're saying you're getting this
Yes.
service now, I'm just,
Well,
you know.
Good job.
see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying?
For me, customer service is not, I don't believe it's validated until it's been tested.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Okay.
think that initially, if you really want to create an environment where you feel like, or you want me to feel like you value me as a customer, sure, all of the things you've talked about are critically important. But where the rubber really meets the road is when I have an issue, how do you act about resolving it?
Yes.
That is where, for me, customer service is critical. Like, what level of dedication? I see you.
You're not supposed to bring attention to it.
Okay.
Just continue.
What level of dedication do you have to actually fixing the issue in a way that makes me feel like you actually value my business?
The reconciliation is very much so
Yeah.
important.
Well, that is going to do it for Habitually Hillary. Customer service, y'all, step y'all game up. Thank you for today's contributor segment, which is going to bring us to our main conversation today. We're super excited about that. But before we get there, make sure you do yourself a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down at the bottom of the screen if you are watching us on YouTube, if you're listening on Pandora, Apple Music, Amazon Podcast, Spotify, any of the above. The Charles Coleman Podcast, this is the new home for Black brilliance. We're not just outside. We're not just all the way up. We're in hyperspace. So come get with us. Make sure you are liked. Make sure you are subscribed. And make sure you are sharing what it is that we got going on. So our main conversation today, I'm very excited to have this with both of you guys because for those of you who don't know, we are running a triangle offense, but we are running the Bison beatdown today. This is the Bison bully on the couch that we got going. We got 3 Bison on the couch, 3, not just HBCU people, not just African-American college graduates, right? We've got 3 Howard University folks on the couch. So, and I love the jacket, by the way.
Thank you.
For those of y'all who are not watching the show, but who are listening, again, you're doing yourself a disservice because CEO is right on code today with the jacket for today's conversation. There's been so much in the news about HBCUs. Like if you remember during the pandemic, it was almost like America rediscovered HBCUs. Yeah, it was a little corny. I get it. It was a lot of like, oh my gosh, let's support historically Black colleges.
Pandering.
Yeah, it was a lot of
That.
like, these Negroes have schools to go to.
Oh, wow.
Right. So there was a lot of like rediscovery of HBCUs, obviously, which have been there. We've been there. We've been outside. But now,
Mostly by other Negroes, though.
that part,
Yeah.
yeah, and you can
It's not
discuss
Negro
that.
at all.
But now there is another sort of wave that has hit on the heels of that sort of self-discovery and in America's racial reckoning, which was tethered to this conversation about HBCUs. There is dirty laundry that is being exposed.
Yes.
And a lot of it is coming from the area of athletics and sort of infrastructure and conversation about sort of what HBCUs do to manage their money, to manage their campuses, to manage their facilities, to manage everything that they have. And there are all kinds of different opinions from different areas. You get people who ain't set foot on an HBCU campus who got everything to say about everything.
Mm-hmm.
You get some HBCU alums who are like, you know, well, it's about time that this stuff get aired out. And then you get some people who are like, yo, stop airing out dirty laundry, particularly if you ain't really, really part of being on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as three people who are in that universe, connected to that space, who've been following this conversation from all different angles, I really wanted to talk about, like, is it a good thing when our HBCUs get aired out?
Personally, I think that there is a certain demographic of the culture, Black culture, that likes to just critique Black people
Okay.
about everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is a criticism, a critique, an analysis about everything. Doesn't matter what it is. Specifically about
Think peace, Negroes.
always, but can't think, but piecing. You see what I'm saying? A lot of piecing,
Not
little
little
thinking.
thinking.
Yeah.
You're right.
See what
okay.
I'm saying? So for me, that is something that I am desensitized to, is always listening to what someone has to say. Because first of all, I'm a person who I pay. I send my money back to the institution because I can vouch for what it has done for me in my life.
You can say the institution.
I do.
Could you say like
Not
the university?
not that institution, but
Yeah, I get it.
higher learning, Howard University.
Yeah.
We'll speak.
Alma
the name of
mater,
that.
like-
we can say that.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
can say
yeah.
Howard. I'm trying to, make sure I'm not, but we can say that here.
Okay.
But we're always talking to people who have nothing to contribute.
But
Nothing,
criticism.
But criticism. That's all they have. There's never a solution. There's never any work that they're willing to do, but they can always point out
That work part.
what the problem is.
Yeah.
That's the main issue for me. The other issue is I can totally remember summers as an intern coming to New York to some of those other 150 plus year old institutions and realizing how quickly I was ready to get back down 95 to my HBCU
Right.
because there were rats and roaches and hot dog water permeating. The pipes were bursting. It was clogs in the bathroom. I mean, all of these things. It's a 150-year-old building.
Right. Right.
It's going to have issues. I mean, I grew up in a historic home. My parents were constantly having to do something. Without money, that's impossible. These schools are running on like gas and fumes. And but there's tons of complaints. And I feel like every time someone
And they can't even manage their own house, let alone.
There you go. Now
Yeah.
that's the thing. And the other thing about these people is if you had taken these little kids who get on the internet and complain about this school that they're now at, if you taken them over their grandmother's house or their cousin's house, they will recognize that, like, some people have roaches.
So what do you think when you see that? Because that's another thing that's different from when we were in school. It wasn't necessarily that the conditions were significantly worse or better. In fact, I think we understood, for example, that we weren't entitled to a dorm room that was hardwired for Wi-Fi. We
Right.
weren't entitled to, brand new central AC, but that was a function of the time. So I kind of understand that. But now one thing that I've seen recently is that the kids, the students, the people on campus, young people will air out the university in a way that just has no regard for anything. Do you think yay for these students for using their voice, or like, yo, this is not the way to do that?
Well, first of all, students at any institution, particularly Black schools, using their voices not only for what's going on outside of the campus, but what's going on the campus is not new. Like, it's always been a protest in front of the A building.
Yeah, okay.
It's usually about administrative stuff, less
Yeah.
about like maintenance and sanitation, right? So I find it interesting. This discussion is never black and white, right? So I find it very interesting that that these are the issues that are being highlighted when they've always existed. I mean, You were at Howard a year or two before me. We were at Howard at the same time. So we've pretty much shared the same experiences. There's always been something, right? But we were so just excited and happy to be on this campus, this illustrious university. And yes, we're speaking for Howard, but I'm sure other HBCUs can say the same thing, right? Yeah. And we look at what these universities have done in spite of the conditions for these students. Like, I'm not about to like raise hell about this. Do I want a better environment? Yes. But this is the same environment for us, particularly that produced a Thurgood Marshall. This is this, so I don't like, I get it because nobody wants to live like in squalor. Like if you see what's going on they airing out Jackson State with all like the whatever. But to her point, these buildings are old. Like some things are just gonna get missed.
Do you feel differently when it is, for example, from someone who is in the athletic context, when they could potentially attract money? Because the argument, for example, and I ain't trying to air nobody out necessarily, but there's been conversation about Ed Reed at Bethune-Cookman and then Prime situation at Jackson State. Neither of them went to HBCUs.
Right.
Ed Reed went to University of Miami. Prime went to Florida State.
Right.
And some people have said, well, these are people who, through their work and their efforts, could actually be bringing dollars in. And so we need to listen to them, or we need to allow them to have a voice, or when they express stuff publicly, it's just in the HBCU's best interest to appreciate that criticism, because on the other side of that, if you address it, are dollars. And then there are other people who are like, nah, son, like you ain't from here. We appreciate your work, but we don't need you. Like, does that matter to you? The fact that these are, CEO, you talked about like young people on campus, but what about adults who are in that space but not of that space?
Well, here we go. A lot of talking heads again, and a lot of poor people talking about money. That's always the other thing. Like,
I need a pause.
We're gonna let poor people analyze money for us, right?
The OG speaks, and when the OG says what the OG says, the OG says it. I knew that was coming.
Oh, good.
Like, I'm not surprised. Like, because some people might hear it and be like, yo, son just said. Yes, she said what she said, and she meant it, and she will likely say it again. So don't be surprised.
And they want you to run behind dollars, right? Oh, he got money. He going whatever to you. But you know what? I'm building my life on a lot of tenacity. Like these people who you talk about, Thurgood Marshall and all the esteemed alum that we can just roll off of our tongues, money wasn't the focus.
That's very true.
It wasn't.
It was not the focus, and it can't be the focus, because you know why? No matter what we get, I will tell you, I sat with those guys who bought the Waldorf Astoria in Washington, D.C., Morehouse graduate. Rich.
Flex.
Plenty money.
Flex.
But let me just tell you something. Our HBCU connection, our cultural connection, was the reason that he extended the olive branch to me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We have never been able to build because, the resources are there. We've never had the resources, and we'll never have as much as them. So we can't let that be the focus.
So that argument doesn't really hold a lot of water.
To me, it falls flat for me. It falls flat for me because I'm also looking at somebody most of the time who doesn't even understand like what they're talking about. Like, I don't talk about money with people. We don't have to discuss what I have or any of that. But the reality is most of these people who are on the internet talking, come on now.
Yeah, you're not even qualified.
They are totally trying to make $1 out of 15 cents.
If that.
I
think that that's a really interesting point. And one that I hadn't considered. But I do think, and this is something that we see all the time, there are a lot of people who just are not qualified to weigh into that discussion.
Well, that is the foundation of social media.
There we go.
The majority of people who talk are not qualified to speak.
And I think if we took out or we separated the numbers of people who weren't qualified to weigh in on this conversation from any angle, you're talking about HBCU athletics. Not only did you not go to an HBCU, but you're not athletic. And you don't know anything about that, right? So there's that, right? You're talking about HBCU, higher education, administration. Not only did you not go to an HBCU, but you don't know the ins and outs. And I'm speaking as a former Howard University Board of Trustee member, like real talk, right? So you don't understand the complexities of what it is to actually run a university and the intricacies of it, and yet you want to publicly sort of have this commentary about what HBCUs should and should not do.
Lambast is what they do.
From Appalachian State.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so there's that part, right? Like, at a certain point, I feel like it is a family discussion.
Yeah.
And know your place.
Yeah.
Like, know your lane. Maybe if you get a chance to sit in the room, you should appreciate the fact that you have that opportunity to be a fly on the wall and you're not getting kicked out the room because you're a cousin.
Yeah.
But understand that your place may not necessarily be with the microphone telling us, HBCU alums, how and what should be done and the way to do it.
I want to say this. We do also have to be careful with silencing justified questions or points made that could benefit us that may come from outsiders. Even though I know it's sort of like, I could talk about my sister, but you can't talk about my sister.
Right.
I get it.
Where you do that
matters. But here's the thing, particularly with HBCU athletics, and I can speak on this as a former college athlete.
Right.
And transferring into Howard, right? I know firsthand that, well, particularly with Howard, because that's not our lane, right? But you know, the athletic department is a shit show. It was. It's gotten a lot better.
Sure.
But it was a shit show. And anybody who's been involved with athletics in HBCU will tell you, like, it's always a shit show. So a lot of stuff that's happened, like with Dion and then with Ed Reed, a lot of folks is like, kind of not surprised. But in true form, we kind of like had these conversations intimately. We wasn't using Twitter or Facebook or Instagram as a soundboard to kind of air it out, but we kind of saw it happening. This advancement in HBCU athletics is very new, particularly for schools that are not of the South. Like the Southern schools, they've been on it. Yeah. The Gramblin's, the Texas, they've been on it. In fact, they've been on it. They've been like, but for Howard's, the Hamptons, Dell States, all of them, this is very new. The idea of like, let's attract the top, whatever, that's new. So unfortunately, the world is watching us figure this out
as we go along.
Growing publicly is very much so difficult.
Yeah. Hillary, I'm going to give you the last word before we close out on this one.
Well,
since you've talked about like poor people, you've talked about like unqualified people.
I did want to interject and just say that I think Deion Sanders and Ed Reed are very much so two different animals.
Okay. How
Ed
so?
Reed came unglued. He was not, to me, he proved that he was not the right leader for the job. I mean, you're going to take on all of these black men who actually need a true leader, somebody whose footing is firmly planted in a lot of different spaces to grow them like in ways that a lot of them may have never been exposed to. And for him to come on TV and come unglued like that, we have to vet our leadership just like everybody else. And I get exactly what you said. I was going to speak to the fact that it's very difficult to grow publicly because systems are not something that we thrive in. Creating systemic things is not our lane. That's something that we're having to like...
We are used to adapting within systems rather than creating systems.
So now we're creating our own and it's very difficult. So I think that there should be, some grace in some ways.
Well, here's what I got to say as we close out. I want to see that same energy for anybody who had smoke about HBCUs and what they should be doing. Show me where you've written a check. Show me where the receipts are. I don't want to hear what you have to say if you're not willing to be part of the solution, because to Hillary's point, there are a lot of people who are about the critique, but not about that work. But we are about that work, and so that's going to bring us to our next segment of rules and engagement. But before we get there, before we get to everybody's favorite spicy part of today's conversation, do yourself a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button at the bottom of the screen. If you are watching us on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, on Apple, wherever podcasts are heard, make sure you are subscribed, make sure you're registered, and make sure you are sharing the Charles Coleman Podcast, your new home for Black brilliance. We'll be right back. This is Rules of Engagement, our conversation about relationships, sex, and love on the Charles Coleman Podcast. Got a good one tonight, super excited. Before we get into it, make sure you do yourself a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button at the bottom of the screen if you're watching us on YouTube. And of course, if you're streaming us wherever podcasts are heard, that's Apple Music, that's Pandora, that's Spotify, we're everywhere like air, the Charles Coleman Podcast, all the way up in hyperspace. So come get with us at the new home for Black brilliance. Super excited about tonight's conversation. I've got two of my favorite Dream Team members on the couch with me, sitting in the back. of course, to my right, we've got the lady in black with the red shoes. I love the look. The things is thinging.
Thank you.
Gloria Cherubin is in the building. The Boston 593 Washington. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I love the earrings.
Oh, thank you.
Every time you wear them, they're real glittery. I love it. And then to my left, of course, you already know what it is. Understated but never underrated, my man. Cashmere Kirk Quillen is in the building. My man, 50 grand. Tonight's a good one. We're going to have a conversation about, this is a relationship conversation. So, you got love, you got sex, we got relationship. This is a relationship one. There's a lot of conversation. I'm not going to air anybody out, but everybody probably knows by this point. There's a certain somebody whose wife went on like a month-long girls trip to an exotic place. And homeboy was getting killed. He was getting killed on the net by guys mostly who was like, yo, come on, fam. Like,
enough's enough.
I know. No, enough's enough. You gotta sign. Like, you took an L. Like, this was a really bad L. And it got me to thinking, when you're in a relationship, there's always a funny line about, people talk about, men saying to women, for example, you can't wear that when you go out. Or women saying to men, you ain't wearing these gray sweatpants out looking like a slut in the streets. But all jokes aside, is there ever a space where you can tell your partner, nah, you're not going on that vacation, you're not going to that place, you're not going with those people, or you ain't going for that long? Like, is there ever, like in real life, I know we joke about it, but like, is there ever a space where you feel like you have that sort of dominion over your partner?
I mean, yes.
I knew you thought you did. I knew you was going to say
I think it's healthy for you to have vacations with your friends, if married or not. I think there should be a marriage vacation.
Okay.
There should be a family vacation. And then there should be vacations where you separate and go and have vacations with your friends.
Okay.
Right? Now, if your vacation always in Dominican Republic, we have a problem. You know what I'm saying? Because we know what happens when black men go to Dominican Republic.
Yo, that's wild flagrant. That is flagrant.
The truth. It's the truth.
That is flagrant.
Certain places, if you go to Brazil, every year we got to talk about it. Okay? This is a situation.
Just because they're doing it, if they are doing it, which they might not
We're
be doing
all doing it. Don't act like it. No, there's too much temptation. That doesn't.
Do you want him to lie though?
I don't want him to lie. I don't want him to go. I want him to go somewhere that's more balanced.
But if they're going, if the trips is where that's their annual trip,
that's too much. It's not.
So you gonna beef or you gonna leave?
You're not going. That's the bottom line.
What does that mean? Like
burning your passport.
Wow.
It's getting crazy. You're not going.
Do you feel like, number one, do you feel like you should have that sort of say? Number two, how would you respond to the pressure?
I think I was all for it until you used the word dominion. I think that's what kind of changed my opinion a little bit. Would I voice how I feel about it? Absolutely.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, but I don't think I have dominion or I rule my relationship to where I can kind of stop or start.
So she going, and she just got to deal with how you feel when you get back.
Nah, I'm not saying that neither.
Okay.
I'm saying, I don't know what I'm saying, to be honest with you, because can she go for 20 days? Absolutely not.
But I really am asking, what's the penalty? Because what you're saying to me, and I'm being serious.
What I'm saying is that we know why I'm picking these spaces.
I know, I understand. Right? But what I'm saying to you is that you feel, I just want to be clear, you are saying that as a grown individual, you can tell and you believe that you should be able to tell another grown individual who you did not give birth to where they can go and where they can't go. You believe that.
What I'm saying is that...
That's a yes or no.
Listen to me.
It's a yes or no.
We are not in the court of law.
I just want to know, do you believe that? That's a yes or no question. Do you believe that you have the right to tell another grown person where they can and cannot go?
Yes.
Yes.
You think so?
No, I'm saying she's saying yes.
Oh, yeah, she's definitely saying yes.
I'm saying yes. Yes, I can say you can't
what
go
gives
there.
you the balls?
I'm saying it's clear that it's gonna make me unhappy, and I'm gonna tell you.
I ain't saying you couldn't be unhappy about it.
But I'm gonna tell you, you can't go there, and if you go there, it's gonna be consequences.
Yeah, we're talking about somebody you spend your life with, right? So if we share a life, I have just much right to say you can't go as much as you got the ability to say you want to go.
Right.
I understand that, but I guess my thing is that part of it is only relative to the extent that somebody wants to exercise it. Because for you, it might not be a thing. You want to go to, we talked about the male prostitution, the male sex workers in on the continent. You want to go out there? If that's where you want to go, you're not going to tell me that that's why you're going. But if that's where you want to go to Jamaica and Selwyn is walking around, swinging on the beach, I'm not getting involved in that conversation. So in terms of like trying to make it a two-way street.
A female DR is what you're saying?
Yeah, or whatever, right? Like you want to go on get your groove back trip. I'm not making that a conversation. So the two-way street piece doesn't always work. I just think it's really ballsy for you to tell another grown adult, yo, you can't go to this place.
If we are in a committed relationship, I think that is fair ground.
Can he tell you what to wear?
Yes, he can tell me.
He can tell you, yo, don't go out the house in that?
He could tell me not to go to that country where the Selvin is at. And he's swinging it too big. He can say that. But...
Swinging it too big.
Swinging it too big?
Yes, he can say that.
Can he tell you what to wear?
I mean, he could tell me that something might make him feel uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Whether I would change, I might consider it. Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of I think you have a right to feel how you want to feel. I think you can be uncomfortable. I think you can say, I'm not comfortable with that.
But, and I
don't think I can tell a person, a partner, a woman, a grown ass woman, yo, you can't go there.
If you got
what I look like?
But see, dude, look how you keep saying it. You keep saying it so aggressively, like someone's gonna be like, yo, you can't go there.
You can't go. You can't go there. I said it soft. Is that better?
It's better.
It's a lot better.
It's a lot
really?
better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you go, I ain't paying this shit next month.
Right.
Now you make a decision. You grown.
Right.
That's like financial abuse, is what
So,
they
right.
call it.
What's the emotional abuse that she gone 20 days with Selwyn? Fuck am I dealing with then?
Someone's getting such a bad.
Exactly.
Rap today.
Yo, so we apologize. It's just it's been a lot of jokes, bro. I feel like it's okay and the reason why I'm kind of having this conversation is because I think that there is an important discussion about like lines and boundaries in relationships. And I think that people still have to be able to have a certain level of agency and adulthood and personhood in a space. It doesn't mean that you have to like everything that your partner does. It doesn't mean that you have to be silent about everything that your partner does. But I think your partner still has the right to do what they want to do.
I don't believe that.
I mean, you can always do whatever.
And now, granted, of all three of us, I'm the furthest away from marriage. You're on the other side. You're currently in it than anyone. So maybe this is just the perspective of someone who hasn't been in that space.
Yes.
I think that shit is wild to me.
That's probably why you have not been married.
There's a certain level of individualism.
I'm just saying that at the end of you got to give that up.
You have to
because
abandon.
if we married and you telling me you going to DR, you not.
Hold on. I'm thinking about this shit.
When you come back, we not married no more.
You not married no more?
No, not if you going to DR, because DR is for dudes that want to smash all them Spanish girls.
But what if
Cats ran their mouth too much, man.
Right, they done came
The
back.
jig is up, kid.
You
if you want to go down that marriage road, you got to understand it's no longer about you. It's
you better
about
go to Haiti.
In all things.
You gotta go on the other side of the island. You can't go to DR.
So you
it's over. Don't do it.
So you feel like your wife could tell you can't go there?
Nah, I don't feel that way.
Or you don't feel that way?
Me, I don't feel that way. But my life shows that I have to feel that way. That's the conflict.
Well, how does that work?
Marriage is all crazy, yo. None of it makes sense.
Okay, well then at least that helps. So like,
yeah, that's it. None of this shit makes sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Nah. You pay everything, you look crazy, you show up, it's nuts. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, I don't know how much help either of you all were in solving that issue in terms of answering the question, but I do think it's a provocative one, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I want to hear what you guys have to say, so if you have a comment, leave it downstairs. Leave it for us on YouTube. We check those things, we read them, and we will respond. Of course, you can also find us on the socials. This has been another edition of Rules and Engagement on the Charles Coleman Podcast. My name is Charles Coleman. That's Cashmere Kirk Quillen, and this is Gloria Cherubin. We'll see you next Wednesday on the new home for Black Brilliance, the Charles Coleman Podcast. Peace.